All right. So just to make sure everything video works. Um, okay, perfect. So anyway, so welcome back. It's been a while since we've done this. I had some family thing going on, but I'm back at it. I want to get my goal is to try and get back on schedule. Um, I thought it would be an interesting opportunity. I know it's 2025. They haven't released the 2026 one yet, but um, I was thinking we can go. It would be interesting to kind of look at, given everything. And for those of you who follow my uh, newsletter, the weekly commodity pulse, I've talked extensively on Iran. I published for those of you, and maybe I'll link it in the comments after this stream ends. But um, or maybe I'll put it in the chat. Maybe I'll pull it up. Give me a moment. Um, the but I for those of you, I wrote an article, released an article today about the Polyev interview with. Um, that's the link in the chat. You go to that, the main Substack, and I made it free. This article, this is a special issue, um, and take a browse there. I've written other articles um, covering obviously some of the information is paywalled. So if you want to support the channel, you want to support the publication, it's reader supported. So um, it's I believe it's $99, 99.75 for an annual subscription. Um, so it's relatively cheap. It's like 15% off if you buy the annual subscription. So check that out. But I cover this article is free though, the one I released today, and I covered the Joe Rogan interview with Polyev, and kind of brought some light, came to light with some interesting perspectives. And I want to talk about that today, but I want to tie that into the 2025 Canadian defense industrial budget. Um, put out by put out by the Canadian government last year, but also where that ties into Canada's positioning going forward. There's everyone's watching the news. The Iran's pretty much, and I can bring that up actually. Iran's pretty much for the first time in history, pretty much locked down the Strait of Hormuz. Um, go incognito, and I'll go to IMF Port Watch. Actually, I should share my screen. Sorry for those of you. IMF Port Watch. Um, and for those of you that are new that might be seeing this for those of you that might be seeing this for the first time, this is completely unscripted. I usually come up with a topic day of or typically the day before in the week, kind of monitor if there's a big topic, then I just kind of talk about it. And this is unscripted analysis. What you're watching now is um, completely unrehearsed. So I apologize if we kind of I'm trying to treat this as a conversation. If you have questions, drop a chat, and I will I'll address them. I thought this is kind of like my way of kind of trying to interact with people. But um, yeah, so if you go to IMF Port Watch and where is it? Port Monitor, and you can go on economy, no, choke points, yeah, and I go Hormuz. Actually, I haven't checked this in a week, so maybe I should check again. So it's good that I'm checking it now, I guess. But yeah, I see it's been mainly flat. Last time I checked, it was there roughly. And it was just crazy because if you kind of zoom out, it's never been that. And what's funny is I remember back in October 7th, around that time, Iran after the first, the 12-day war with Israel and Iran. I remember there was when they initially bombed. This was back when Iran had launched a bunch of missiles, and the Saudis got involved, and they all started shooting down. Everyone heard of the news, the Saudis and Jordanians, unheard of, so to speak, openly supporting the Israelis in open combat, and it was shooting down Iranian missiles. And that was when Iran threatened that if they didn't stop, if the Israelis didn't stop the war, didn't stop operation in Gaza, they would block the Strait of Hormuz, and they never did it. And I can actually get into that why in a minute. That's actually an interesting topic to discuss. But yeah, you can see like this. So this is for ships. So this is for transit calls. So basically, ships. Same thing like in an airport when airplanes land, they usually make um, they usually report when they're flying. They usually report when they're flying down, when they're arriving. This is kind of ship travel, ships number of ships traveling through the strait in a on that date. Um, so, and actually, I'll actually make that point, get to that argument now, which is why um, I'll get to that in a moment. Now, actually, what was it again? Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I was digressing there. Bear with me, but um, what is it? 2025 Canada in defense industrial strategy. So these are I guess our Minister of National Defense. For those of you who maybe you're watching this and you're Canadian, you don't know these people as their secretary. If you never knew, or Stephen Fuhr, Secretary of State, Melanie Joly, Minister of Industry, and Dave McGuinty. Um, Actually, for those of you who live in Ottawa, I used to live in Ottawa, and I will see his signs. Kind of a funny thing to see his signs around Ottawa for his riding, but I believe I think his eyes was riding David McGuinty. Yeah, Ottawa South. That's why that's why I recognize it from. So, and this was something. And actually, before I get to that, there's something I really wanted to draw the close eye on. And I was skimming this the other day because I was trying to make sense of Canada's positioning. Because part of the reason I wanted to bring up that article, and actually I'm digressing a lot here. Let me open up two things. I have them open, and I won't forget. Um, NATO, 5% of GDP, press release. Yeah, this was it. No, that wasn't it. Two point. For those of you that don't, so what I'm trying to look for was there was a specific press release from NATO that stated there are 12 critical minerals, but it also stated there's basically you have your critical minerals. They have 12 critical minerals that NATO is defined as critical for defense, meaning these are that's why I wanted to bring up this industrial strategy because it talks about how specific military applications these are important for. I'll go here. 10. Here was a statement I found. So, of the 12 defense critical materials identified by NATO, Canada produces 10, including aluminum, gallium, germanium, graphite, and tungsten. Canada is a global producer for more than 60 minerals and metals and holds the world's largest deposits of high-grade uranium. High-grade uranium. So now that's a bit of nuance. In my article, I'd written that currently Canada doesn't produce, is the second largest producer after Kazakhstan. Cameco Corporation, for those of you that don't know, Cameco Corporation, I can pull up this ticker right now. CCJ if you're in the US, CCO.TO, Cameco Corporation. So, no, not this. I'm trying to find their Yahoo. I'll just go to here. CCO. Now, they're based in northern Saskatchewan. They own a significant portion midstream, upstream, downstream. Downstream, they own Westinghouse. They actually acquired Westinghouse while back, a couple years ago. It was like under 5 years ago or something. They acquired Westinghouse. Funny enough, if you guys follow Canadian news, Westinghouse Corporation is the um, that's partially owned by Brookfield Asset Management, which hence why kind of funny thing how Carney actually signed a deal with signed a deal with Westinghouse to, I guess, well, now they're working with the federal government basically to produce more uranium for Canada. Um, I suspect, based on all the talk, I remember I talked about this before on prior live streams, but I remember the mayor of Calgary talking about this. Danielle Smith spoken about this, and I think it was they're working with the University of Calgary, University, and I think it was the University of Calgary, and there's another the other university in Calgary, um, and there's a second one I'm blanking on the name, but they're basically working with professors there to build an energy grid, and it's going to be powered by SMRs, small modular reactors. Um, I'll show you what I and basically here, so power capacity typically up to 300 megawatts. I won't go. This is not a chemistry thing, so I'm not going to go super into what these things, but I'm just kind of show what they are. But basically, these things run on uranium, and the federal government's essentially treating this like I guess the way they was described by the professor when he was giving that talk at the conference was this global energy show like a year ago, and he made this comment that they're like, well, this is more instead of building a multi-billion-dollar nuclear facility like a giant traditional nuclear reactor, um, these are a lot safer, they're a lot smaller, and you can build out as you need. So like these are small enough that they're cheap enough that you can kind of b- build more as you need. And so it actually saves. I guess if the country was on a national level, the federal government decided they wanted to build a national energy grid, which is what they were talking about. I think Alberta is the testing ground, and they're talking about going across Canada if that's successful. Um, and there's all other hurdles, and I'll get that in a moment, but regulatory hurdles. But what's crazy is if they can build outwards, so it becomes a lot cheaper, and it's scalable, cheaper and scalable as opposed to jumping to a massive reactor that you don't that's producing either way too much or not enough at the time. And so back to the defense budget, talked about uranium, and I should say this too, actually, that what this conflict in the Strait of Hormuz has kind of shown is first of all, in terms of in terms of speculators, because there's the physical supply and then there's the paper supply, and the physical when you look at like trade, like for example, the physical supply of crude oil, that automatically, if whenever a war, and especially in the Gulf region, which is where when they're like the war has kind of shown that just even one country attacking another, automatically you end up with what you call like geopolitical risk premium, which I've talked about before extensively. But basically, the geopolitical risk premium is it's a premium that basically it's pricing in, for lack of better words, instability and unpredictability, essentially. So, for example, insurance premiums. When I remember an article, I'm I saw that this was an old article, but it was an article that was released around October 7th, and it was saying after the Houthis attacked an American cargo ship, insurance premiums went up. I think it was like 1 or 2%, hiked up 1 or 2%. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but these are insurance. Marine insurance is a fortune, especially if you're shipping. If you have dozens of ships in a given day going through, so you have hundreds of ships a month, and not to mention the only other alternative route is around Cape Horn, which is the Horn of Africa, and and then you get into other issues too. With Asia is a whole other ballgame, but I mean the only other way around is the North Passage, and the North Passage is opening up now. I know we have the North we have the Nor- we have the Arctic Committee, which is like countries that have gotten together to kind of take control. I guess it's kind of like NATO for the Arctic, so to speak. Like these countries they're getting together, talk about trade, talk about security in the north, the far north. But then you had, I forgot the name of what I forgot what they were calling it. It was Canada Nordic Alliance. Um, I think it was just called literally called the Canada Nordic Alliance in 2026 summit in Oslo. And basically, here I'll just open up PM Carney's press release. But transaction estimated. Is it? Yeah, here it is. While Norway Prime Minister Carney attended the Canada Nordic Summit, where it's met Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and to reinforce and strengthen transatlantic security. And as the as the ice caps are melting, the North Atlantic is opening up. The new trade routes were opening up, and which is actually kind of interesting. This is kind of this in essence would kind of create like a like a like kind of like a spine of if they can open up and secure a trade route through the north, it could be an alternative route to circumnavigate, I guess for lack of better terms, like in unstable waters, so to speak. Instead of traveling through the Middle East, they would have to travel through. They would have to try. They could travel through the north to Europe. Canada, like Canada like northern Canada could open up as another possible shore, and Canada has the largest uninterrupted coastline of any country in the world. And so, but we really only use the Pacific and the Atlantic side of it. Like imagine we could open up the north. Um, I mean, we're not so close. I think that's still about it. I think that's still a couple decades out before it's really opened up for as much as the Atlantic or the Pacific coast, but it kind of shows potential. And hold on, let me just go to my article quickly to kind of show something else. Um, Here, let me just open up the link I sent. For those, again, I know I saw some people join, so if you check that, if you're curious, I'm just pulling open the link. Um, this was today's article that I had posted. Um, yeah, so these are some things that I had fact checked kind of from the in the here, and then I thought it would be interesting. But um, actually, yeah, this was what I wanted to talk about before. But where was it? Where was it? Maybe it wasn't in here. Anyways, I can't remember. I'd written about it, but it wasn't in this article. But you know that Canada has. This is my most recent one from today. I was talking about in the beginning of the live stream. But anyways, here I'll close this. So it's not distracting. But anyways, this kind of leads into what I'll talk about next, which is which is like and I mentioned I would talk about this earlier on, which is bureaucracy and the red tape. And there's a lot of red tape that goes into. Actually, I'll open that back up because I had actually does have some data that I would actually talk about. Um, and I just had it in front of me. Sorry. But yeah, so like I mentioned, for those of you who don't remember, for those of you who haven't seen actually, before I get into that, I'll kind of go in chronological order because I kind of build into that. But the basically Polyev, who for those of you who are watching don't know, he's the official opposition leader for the conservative. He's the part of the Conservative Party. Mark Carney is currently our prime minister. He is the liberal. He's from the Liberal Party. And what's kind of funny is I've never heard, I've never heard it so blatantly obvious. I'm sure it happens all the time, but it's so blatantly obvious that like I'm not like he official opposition is almost begging the prime minister to steal his ideas. And it's kind of funny because embedded in it was inside the 2025 Canadian federal budget that they had said that they're expecting. That's where the 300 billion, I talk about it towards the end, but the federal budget literally, that where's the quote 300 billion more. Here we go to the actual Canadian federal budget, what the quote was. 300 billion. That's what basically part of what they call the trade diversification strategy. But basically, they want to over the next over the next decade, they want to basically diversify their trade away from the U.S. This is obviously kind of climaxed with the Trump administration putting tariffs on Canadian energy, but this is also that he talked about this in the interview, but and which is why I'm kind of more and more convinced the more I think about it that this interview was less of a personal political gain to kind of get traction, but more like I think he was genuinely making the case that that by Canadian to the broad to the globe, like Joe Rogan, like he gets millions of listeners. Like I genuinely think that this was kind of like a sales pitch to anyone to get investors in Canada because we not only because he's talking about these critical minerals that we have, but he also talks about what Canada needs to do to strengthen its industry and to kind of move away from the U.S. diversify. And for those of you that follow Kitimat Terminal at LNG, they're on phase two. And there's more in line, two more to come online in 27 and 2028, 2028. And we're already exporting to South Korea, Japan, again, Southeast Asia, LNG, liquefied natural gas. And again with the U and again with the U.S. and unpredictable trade basically because the U.S. has such unpredictability with their under the Trump administration with the tariffs. So we so it gives Canada an opportunity, and like I said, like Canada has 10 over 12 NATO defense minerals. Like on paper, we should be a much wealthier country, so to speak, and that's kind of what he talks about. But um, where was it? And then and it kind of goes into these, and this is what I want to talk about because I know that in the past, in the past, I remember I remember some of these, like I remember hearing about some of these bills in the paper, and until I actually read the federal budget. I mean, I understand the Bailey implications, but if you read the 2025 defense strategy, industrial strategy, and you read the 2025 federal budget in the context of these bills, it kind of makes. And I've linked these bills. If you go to the article, they're all linked to the actual thing. You can go there and see the actual bill, but and it's hundreds of pages. So I kind of like you go to the table of contents and you can find what you're looking for, but just the amount of bureaucracy that we've set up. So 69 was the C-69 was like dubbed the pipeline ban, but really what it was, and then when you read between beneath the layers, maybe it was more like it had all these it's basically environmental survey. But when you actually start working with like when you actually start the problem with environmental survey is it's like Polyev kind of pointed this out. It took, and I wrote that here, and I wrote about it here, was the where was it? Took Germany 60 days to approve an LNG terminal, and it was completed in under a year. I think it was like 300 days was what he had said in the interview. Um, it was it took him it took him under a year basically to complete the terminal, and um, and that like 300 days alone is what we give our assessment, and that's before we even are allowed to do any of to actually start the project. You have to go through this assessment, and it's extendable if it goes through the House of Commons and the committee decides it's extendable if they feel the need to extend the period where they're surveying. And I mean that's all said and done, but I mean we see countries that are even more. When you look at European countries that are even more environmentally cautious, I guess for lack of better words, they they're taking like it almost begs the question that a lot of this is bureaucracy layered on bureaucracy, and again on a surface level this might actually end up being just the federal government's way of saying, well, we don't want to tell the public, we don't want to build out our industry, which has other positive economic implications like like job higher wages, job growth, job creation, all these things that come in hand with industrializing an economy, especially an economy of scale. I mean, in theory, the larger the economy is the scale, the more industrial growth you need to keep up with GDP growth. Um, and it's almost like this is like a way to stalemate the industry. Um, and then you have the Canadian Energy Regulator, which reviews the pipeline cross-border style energy infrastructure. C26, which is cybersecurity protection for utilities. So they have to go through more bureaucracy, and there's fines. There's like multi-million-dollar fines. But then you have Bill S4, which was basically more regulation on and rules on how on like how things are run basically for without going into details, it's like the government's telling companies how they have to run their operations, what types of machines are approvable are approved or not, and and again there's multi-million dollar fines on top of that, um, and where this becomes more, and again, this kind of, I remember a month ago, when I can admit to you, like, when I looked at it, I said, "Wow, this is great progress," but then when you read me but then after you see this interview come out, and after you read a lot of the stuff that a lot of the commentary that comes from the federal government, um, following, and a lot of the reaction to this, it's almost like a photo op stunt, I have less and less hope that there's going to be that there truly is going to be cooperation in at least under this government for a pipeline. But then again, I'm not trying to get political. I'm going to try and kind of stay within what I'm talking about. But there's it almost, you can kind of understand why foreign investors wouldn't turn to Canada in order to I guess for business opportunity, for lack of better terminology. Um, so yeah, um, and I don't know, I guess we can kind of go through. I thought it'd be maybe we can do more. Like that was kind of a high level what I was going to talk about without dragging on. I figured, or well, that this was not the defense strategy. Sorry, that was behind. Um, Well, actually, I can go back to the 5%, and which was what I was getting at before. This is kind of an interesting thing. I know I mentioned it before, but I've mentioned it plenty of times. I know people that have probably followed my older videos will kind of call this out, maybe recognize this what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to find it. It was 3.5%. No, that wasn't it. Okay, yeah, this was the figure. It was 3.5. It was 3.5% on core defenses, but then 1.5% on adjacent areas like industry and infrastructure, cybersecurity. Industry and infrastructure are the keywords here. So I can't find the actual. I can't remember where. I couldn't find the press release, but this is basically saying the same thing, which is basically NATO sets a 5% GDP target, so countries have to spend at least 5% of the GDP. But then of other NATO members have to spend 5% of their GDP on defense, but then they have allocations within that. So 1.5% industry, cybersecurity, infrastructure, etc. So defense adjacent fields, and where that is the key figure, will mean 1.5% of their 5% budget towards. So 1.5% of their GDP in total is essentially needing to be spent on things like critical mineral processing. Again, those are the critical minerals and cybersecurity. But again, those are critical mineral processing, the critical minerals that are critical for defense. Now, where can I find where was it? I'm trying to find. There was a page where it talks about which minerals they're using and like what they're developing, what Canada is planning to develop, which is kind of an interesting thing to kind of look at. I thought. Let's talk about small modular. We go to the table of contents. That's always helpful. Maybe I'll put this link in the. Okay. If you're curious, I'm just gonna put the link in the chat actually. Um, and actually, what's kind of funny too is that we have some of the largest critical mineral deposits in the world. And again, as I said before, we're not accessing it. But what's kind of funny about this entire thing is we could is Trump's talked a lot about his dome of defense for North America, and I think one case to be made for Canada as a global trading partner is that we have certain we have critical minerals that can be that we can that we can set, like in a case of a war, like we're even seeing now, like, we can sell it, we have access to minerals that we can sell our allies, and I think that's the one case to be made, when America says Canada, building the dome of defense, and they want one of the values that Canada has, um, that brings to the table, and I think that's, like, kind of like a case to be made. Where is it? No. Yeah, 33. That was it, sorry, okay. So critical, oh, yeah, so fine, that was it, and yeah, I'm actually gonna look in I'll keep an eye, maybe I'll do a video on this, on the stock on the report, the strategy to be released on, stockpiling. What's an interesting thing too to actually discuss now, actually to kind of mention is because I know that I don't remember what the outcome was. Selling. A while ago. I'm getting them on. I'm curious. I'm curious where this. Mhm. Um, anyway, the U.S. is basically the U.S. and the other countries were considering selling strategic oil reserves, um, and I guess the idea is to inject oil to kind of artificially bring down the price of oil. The war the war almost, like they were saying here, like $120. I think it was after the Ukraine war. Yeah, when the Russian invaded Ukraine, um, prices went up above 120 a while back too. What prices went up above 120? I think, and again, I won't digress into this actually, but I think that this is kind of proven too. We've seen prices stabilize a bit higher than usual, but they're still very volatile. That's not stabilized. I kind of use that term lightly, but I think we're looking at a repricing of crude oil, and I think what makes this different than the Ukraine invasion and I guess prior global conflicts is Venezuela and Iran. Like the fact like in the past there might have been open conflict or exchanges, but there's but it's different in the sense that now the U.S. is directly militarily involved. It wasn't like in the Ukraine where they weren't directly involved, but I mean openly involved. It was more like funding or other things. But but I mean the U.S. went into Venezuela, they removed the leader, and now then they seized the oil. Then Iran, they're now this is an open conflict. And I think that's what changes it. The U.S. is an open conflict. Um, but yeah. Anyways, that is yeah. That's the my comment on that. But yeah. Anyways, the I mean I don't want to go too much. I don't want to really go on like to digress more. But yeah, maybe next week I might follow up. When they release in quarter 2 2026, I might actually do a little thing on. I'm probably gonna do a little thing on that. So every week I'm gonna be doing this. Basically, the idea is we're gonna cover a topic, again, unscripted. If you like this type of content, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also check out the newsletter. Again, premium subscription. It's reader supported. It's only $99.75 a year annually. That's 15% discount from if you were to buy it month to month. So check it out. I believe you get one free post. Today's post. Don't claim your free post on this one because this one was not paywalled. I once in a while I like to do like a kind of like a free one, just kind of for fun. Like if there's a big if there's something going on. But if there's something going on like with the Pierre interview. But yeah, check it out and hope you enjoyed. Always have a good night.